Hey everyone, it's Chris from Smithy Fitness. Today, Smithy Finance, and for the first time and probably the last time, I'm going to do a video on real estate. And you might say, well, what do you know about real estate? Well, back when I was, let's call it 35 years ago, I bought a fourplex. And then about a year after that, I bought an eightplex. And then I sold them. And about the same time I was selling them, I was buying a 21 unit apartment building. That was in 1990. So I've owned it 32 years and I've had it this whole time. I also own a house. My ex-wife owns a house that I purchased. So I know a little bit about real estate, and of course I've been in the financial world my whole life and been to many real estate gurus sessions. And at one time when I was a young man in my 20s, I wanted to own apartment buildings and apartment blocks and maybe 100 units. But I've learned a few things over the years, and I thought I'd share it with you today. So the title of this is Real Estate, Your Real Estate Guru versus Reality. So this can be Robert Kiyosaki or Grant Cardone or many others, and they're good guys. I don't have anything against them. I just want to give you the straight stuff. It's not quite as simple and as easy as you might believe it is or wish to believe it is. Again, I'm just a guy on the internet sharing my opinion. Doesn't mean I'm right or particularly an expert. This is just what's happened to me in my life. So let's get started. Here's what your guru says, and here is my sense of reality and what I've gone through over all these years. First of all, your guru is going to tell you it's relatively easy. All you have to do is find a property manager, find a banker who will finance it for you, and then just buy it, and your tenants are going to pay the mortgage, and in 20 years or 15 years, you're going to be rich, piece of cake. You just got to step up and do it, man. Okay, the reality is that it's nothing but problems. Okay, now, look, I don't want to discourage you, but this is the truth. There is a lot of stuff that's going to go wrong with your property over the years, and it's going to cause you a lot of heartache and difficulty, and we'll get into that. Okay, so one of the things they say is no money down, or at least small money down. And I'm going to say I doubt it, but it is possible if you get a vendor take-back mortgage or a co-signer. Now, I'll talk about my deal. So in 1990, I was 30 years old by then. I did buy this property. It was a 21 unit apartment building. It's in a far-flung place. It's in interior BC, a little town called Trail. And it was a great deal. It was about $200,000. The banks agreed to put down 50%. So 50%, I had to raise the other 50%. The bank gave me the 100, as I mentioned, but then the vendors, the sellers of it, to get the deal to close, agreed to lend me $80,000, and then there was another $20,000, and I actually did that through credit cards, if you can believe it. So it was kind of crazy, but the cash flow was good. The building sold at a good price to cash flow, and we're going to talk about that as well. That was a vendor take back, but even then I needed a co-signer, which was my dad, because I was a commission salesman. And although my T4 or my tax form said that I had a good income, it was up and down a bit. It might be $100,000 one year, $75,000 another year. Remember, this is $1990. And the banks don't like that. They want you to work for GM or Microsoft or somewhere where you're getting a paycheck steadily. So it took a lot of work. In fact, that closing took me about 6 months. They kept asking for stuff, but it finally did close. So it's not easy. It takes a real lot of perseverance, even just to get the deal closed. And you've got to pay closing fees, et cetera, So there's costs involved as well, legal fees, land transfer tax, et cetera. Now, they'll also tell you that the building is going to be cash flow positive if you buy it right. And this is actually quite true. It can be cash flow positive, but it's not going to be cash flow positive in Toronto or Chicago or New York or Los Angeles or almost any big or medium-sized city, because the cost of the real estate, the price of the real estate is so high that by the time you pay your mortgage and your property taxes and repairs and maintenance, etc., you're not going to get positive unless you put down a lot of money on the building. So if the building is $500,000 and you put down 200,000, then you only have to finance 300,000. Obvious, your costs are much lower than if you had to finance the whole 500,000. So it's really difficult, especially in your big towns. Now, if you go to a small town, and you could go to, I'm in Toronto, so you could go to the North Country here. You go to Sudbury or Thunder Bay or one of those places. The prices will be a lot more reasonable, but then you're an absentee landlord, and that brings up a whole bunch of other problems, which I had with my building, and we'll talk about that again. But my building's about, I don't know, 2,000 kilometers away. It's a long way. It's 4.5, 5 hours on a plane to get to my building. So, and that was the only way I could do it, where it made sense that the rents could pay off all your expenses. So, cash flow positive, yes, but, okay. Now also, when you're making your cash flow sheet and you're saying, well, my rents are this, and then my expenses are this, this, and this, and at the end of the day, I'm left with this, you know, so you might have 10,000 in rents, let's say 7,500 in costs or 8,500 in costs, and you're left with 1,500. Awesome, except we almost always underestimate vacancies, repair and maintenance, problem tenants. So a problem tenant, you know, can refuse to leave and not pay you, and it could take you maybe a year to kick them out. And again, problems, it's, you know, got to go through the court system, and you got to call the sheriff in and have them served with papers and follow the forms and line up and be on hold and all that sort of thing. So, but a problem tenant is huge. I've had a number of them. Problem property management. So look, let's assume you have to buy it out of your town. You've got to hire property management, and you're trusting them with collecting the rents and depositing and doing all the fix-ups. Well, look, there's good property managers and bad ones, and that can really cost you as well. That has been my case. I've had a landlord who was a huge problem. Took me ages to get the landlord out. Problems. Okay, well, let's go back to it. Nothing but problems. Okay, just be prepared for this. And then refinancing. So right now interest rates are very low. If you've got a 20-year mortgage or a 25-year mortgage, and then you've got to refinance it in 5 years when the mortgage expires, there's a good chance the interest rates, or at least there's a chance the interest rates will be higher and your expenses will be higher. So these things are real. Finally, after 30 years, my building is kicking butt. It's doing really well. There's no mortgage, but I just had the boilers go down. You know how much to repair, or not to repair, to replace the boilers? $85,000 Canadian. So that takes a lot of months of positive cash flow. And this is what I'm saying, you know, it just seems like you're in the clear and then something else comes up. Now, one of the gurus that I saw many years ago basically said, go out and buy some buildings and then just hang on for dear life. And that's actually pretty good advice. If you can do it, if you are prepared to do it, particularly if you're a fixer-upper and it's in your town or within a driving range of your town, this can make sense. Okay, so I say, okay, not bad, pretty good, makes sense. But hanging on for 10, 15, 20 years is a long, long time. And it can be years before your property goes up substantially in value. Just the way that your real estate fees are when you sell it, you need a pretty good lift just to break even after fees, and then to make it worthwhile, you're going to need to hold it at least 10 years in my opinion. So hang on, that's fine, but this is not a 400-meter run. This is a 100-miler, guys. 10, 15, 20 years. I've had mine for 30. That's a long time, and it can drive you a little bit crazy. So let's talk about the money that's involved and how you can make money. Here's my actual transaction. In 1991, I spent $200,000 on the building, as I mentioned. It's worth about $1 million now, I hope, I think. It's close to it at least. So you think, well, 200 to $1 million, that's fantastic. Well, all it is 5.5% per year compounded, if you do the math, for 30 years. So, you know, big deal. But of course, we're buying with it with leverage. So if you bought that building and put down, say, 15%, so you put down 30 grand and it's worth $1 million, okay, that sounds pretty good. But it's still only 12.4%, which I agreed is quite good. But, it's not 40%, it's 12%. And let's say you were like me and you went to your credit cards, and let's just call it 10 grand. Because I had to pay my credit cards off pretty fast. I was working, I had a good job, and I was working hard and just socking it against the credit card debt. But anyway, let's say you put down 5%, and listen, this is a 4-star deal if you can. Then you're looking at 16.6% compounded, which is really good. But again, it's not, crazy. You can get that in the stock market, and that's my next point. So if you are going to buy a building, the best thing to do, if you're a fix-it kind of person, or you have a team around you, a plumber, an electrician guy, and someone who can drywall and knock out walls and sort of make a place beautiful, we call that sweat equity. You can actually do that and flip some buildings, and that can really work for you. That's a little bit different than what I'm talking about now, of buying a multi-unit building. But this is a great way to go. Sweat equity, add some value, kick it out after a few years, you can do well. The other thing you can do is you can buy a REIT. Now that's a real estate investment trust. There's lots of them that are listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange and the New York Stock Exchange. Some of them are going to yield you like 6%, 7-8% even 5% is good. Remember, this is only 5.5% compounded, although higher if you use leverage. But you can buy your REIT with leverage too. Most places, brokers will allow 50% down. Some will allow even as little as 30% down. Now your 6% is becoming, call it 12%, minus a few percent you have to pay in interest expense, but there's tax advantages. It's a pretty good way to go. I was talking to my son, he's only 23, he wants to build an empire. He's ambitious just like I am, like all us guys, we want to be big, we want to be huge, want to make a difference and, kind of be the king. And I'm saying, well, you can go out there and have nothing but problems, and you might win a couple of extra percent, or you can stick it in a REIT and just reinvest the dividends that come to you, use leverage, and hold that REIT for 20 years. And, the returns are not going to be far off this building, and yet you're going to have nothing but problems. So that's what we're looking at. Real estate investment gurus, real estate gurus, they've done it, they've gotten size, but I'm sure if you're sitting down having a scotch or two with them, they would have some horror stories to tell you about the freak flood that happened, that horrible tenant who murdered his wife or something in the building, lightning strikes and, all sorts of craziness. COVID. I mean, imagine being a landlord when COVID hit and suddenly the government is saying, okay, well, tenants don't have to pay rent for the next 12 months. And you're stuck. You still have to pay the bank. The other thing is, you can be classified, especially in today's socialist environment, as a fat cat landlord, kind of the bad guy, the landlord versus the tenant, the poor tenant that you're kicking out because they're not paying. There's that goes with it. So anyway, that's my experience. I hope you find this helpful, and I don't want to, downtrodden anybody's dreams of building it up. If you really want to do this and you feel that you can hang on no matter what, go for it. You'll learn a ton, as I have. But I bought this building in 1990, and other than the place I'm living in, I haven't bought any more. So, and I've got the means. No thanks. I've got enough problems with this place. I'm going to have a nice payday pretty soon when I sell it. But anything can happen between 1990 and now that can really spoil it, and maybe you can't hang on and you end up selling it at a loss, and maybe it pushes you into bankruptcy. So look at both sides of it. I wish you luck. The stock market is awesome. I've made a lot of money in stocks. I've got other videos on that. That's a great way to go without these problems. I know a lot of you are in crypto. It's not my bag, but I'm all for it. Go for it. And of course, gold and silver. All right, that's it. Good to see you again. It's been a little while. Please subscribe and like this if you thought it was worthwhile. And I will see you in the next one.